All right, everyone, we'll make a start right on time. My name is Jane Habner. Please come in. I do love the mid-year O Week. It is significantly smaller and significantly less people in the room. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jane Habner. I'm one of the academics or one of the lecturers who at the university sits centrally within what we call the Student Learning Support Service. You'll be shocked to discover that that involves supporting students with their learning. Most of the time you will see myself or colleagues that I have within your topic or within your classes. We pop up literally there saying vaguely important things, or we do the same thing via videos that we force into your flow sites and you're like, there they are again. Sometimes those students do say, hey, I can't even wait for them to turn up in my class, and they come and see us centrally. And how many of you will be studying here on the Bedford Park campus? Yep, looks like most of you. You can find us literally in the bottom floor of the library behind Flinders Connect. And you can drop in there anytime we're open for any type of questions you might have or support you might need. Will anyone be down at Sturt? Anyone doing nursing? No. Yes. Down at Sturt, but probably not nursing because no mid-year entry. Down at Sturt, we live in the Sturt Library. So it's all happening. You can't escape. I'm assuming no one's from the city, but if anyone will be studying on the city campus, you'll find us on level 4. What am I going to be doing today? Before I do absolutely anything, I acknowledge that I both work and live on unceded Kaurna Yatja, Kaurna land. I pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land, and I acknowledge their ongoing sovereignty. But what we're looking at doing today is really my job for this first session is a really light one. It's just to talk a little bit about, I think about it as what we call things here at Flinders, but just talking about some of the things you're going to be thinking about right at the beginning. So courses and topics, the different learning activities that you'll be involved with, assessment, what it is and why the hell we do it, and then explain the grades at Flinders, so the grade structure and also the grade point average. Your GPA or your grade point average is usually a term all students know when they start university, but they're not quite sure what it is. Has anyone studied at a university prior to right now? Flinders or somewhere else? Somewhere else. Fantastic. So a few things that I talk about simply because it's how we do it at Flinders. Because every university has its own quirks. Alrighty. Before we get started, all of you will be studying primarily in one of the 5 academic colleges at the university. Does everyone know which college they belong to? Anyone not sure? Yeah, absolutely. At the back, what are you studying? Public policy. So you would live in business, creative arts, law and social sciences, or BICLS, as it is affectionately known. Yes? Education. Now, if you had started last year, or even at the beginning of this year, you would know your college because your college was called the College of, wait for it, Education, Psychology and Social Work. If you studied one of those degrees, you knew where you were. Education, psychology or social work. Good news. They've made it clearer for you. You live in human sciences and culture. What a silly name for the college. Nobody agreed. Anyone else not sure what college they belong to? Everyone else feeling pretty good? Yes? Masters of Teaching. You also are obsessed with human sciences and culture, which really education would have covered it, but we made that change. Nursing and Health Sciences was the name of the college that is primarily made up of nursing and health sciences. That's now Health and Enablement. The rest of them are fairly self-explanatory. By the time people start next year, God knows what we'll be calling our colleges. Anyway, even though some students, will do all of their degree and all of the topics that sit within their degree within one college, quite often students don't feel any grand connection to the actual college, which is just a structure at the university. What most students feel the connection to is their discipline. So whether or not it is education, whether or not it is sort of public policy or government, etc., law, for example. Most law students don't say, I'm a student in Bickles. They say, I'm a law student at Flinders, or I'm in the law school. But it is good to know, particularly around communications, which college primarily your degree sits in. Which brings us to something that is important to make distinctions for those of you who have studied elsewhere, which is here at Flinders, you have your degree that you're doing. Someone might refer to it as your program, the program that you're studying, and we might also often call it your course. What course are you doing? Flinders is really the only university that refers to individual subjects as topics and the overall degree as the course. So if you have come from a study at a different university, you might be much more used to hearing course being referred to as individual subjects. I'm doing 4 courses or 3 courses this semester. Here at Flinders, you do 1 course over or sometimes 2, over the period of years that you're here. So your degree program, we will refer to it as your course, and your course is a collection of topics, the topics, come in and take a seat, the collection of topics that you do any given semester. Topics can come from any college. So again, some students might do all of their topics within the one college, but any number of you who might be doing something in health, whether it's in medicine and public health or the new Health and Enablement College, you might also in your first year do first year biology, and that sits over in science and engineering. So quite often you might move about the university physically and into different colleges for any number of different topics. Is everyone feeling like they are correctly and successfully enrolled for this coming semester? Yes? Good news. Good news. In terms of choosing your topics, hopefully you are familiar with the term study plan, your study plan. Not surprisingly, it is the plan of your study. There are some degree programs in which you have no choice in the topics that you do. Nursing is one of them at Flinders. The curriculum is so packed that students go from this topic to that topic to this topic with no choice. So every topic in nursing is a core topic, a topic that you must do. For many degrees, you have some core topics, and then you have a range of electives that you can select. When it comes to electives, we often see them in degrees where you might have a major or a minor. In arts, in education, in science, for example. Some of the broader degrees where you do have some core topics, you have selected a major or majors, which is sort of like a specialisation, your choice of focus. And then you might have elective topics where you get to pick really what you think will be of most interest to you. Each degree program differs really widely, but also wildly in terms of how study plans are structured. So do make sure you understand your study plan. How many people will be studying full-time? Fantastic. How many people part-time? Just a few. Part-time, of course, there's no grand difference in terms of one is full-time and one is part-time, but in terms sometimes of when topics run each semester, for example, maybe they run in first semester, maybe they don't run in second semester. If it's one you want to do, if it's a core topic that you need to do, you're part-time, you might be, oh no, I'm not going to be able to do it now until next year, etc. So it is really important to understand your study plan, understand the topics that you need to do in your degree, understand if you drop down to part-time for a semester, which just involves literally only enrolling in fewer topics than the full-time load. It's just important to be aware of whether or not it has any impact on how long it is you'll be here doing your degree. Always ask for help if you're ever unsure. Flinders Connect is a great place to be able to literally just wander into if you're on campus. Does everybody know where Flinders Connect is? Not quite. Flinders Connect, if we think about the plaza, which is obviously just out there, the big glass sliding doors that take you into what is the bottom level of the library, that's Flinders Connect, where you can go and say, oh, what the, I have questions about my study plan. I need a sticker for my student card. I need a student card. If you need a student card, get one. You can go right after this to Flinders Connect. Not directly after it, because my colleague Grace is coming to speak about some important things, so you might want to wait till after that. Yeah, so really the key thing to really just be aware of is to understand your study plan. Once you do understand your study plan, you'd begin to think of, I'll run it in this order. Begin to think about the different learning activities that you'll do here at Flinders. A number of you will do a range of different activities. So some might be lectures or tutorials, which are the ones that we most traditionally associate with university. Some of you will spend time in laboratories or clinical settings if you're doing health-related degrees. Increasingly, of course, students do a number of online activities. Let's just have a little quick look at a few of them to make sure we're all aware of the differences between them. We sit here, of course, in a lecture theatre at Flinders, and this is often the type of space that students really associate with university, sitting in a lecture theatre or a lecture hall with lots of other people. We do have less lectures at university than we used to. Any ideas why? Why we have less lectures than we used to? Come in. Anyone want to take a guess? Yeah. A lot of the people who were clinging on really were chopped off, yes, during COVID. At COVID, obviously, we thought, you know what would be not smart? Putting 200 people in a room together. Yes, COVID. Any other reasons? That was kind of, that forced some people to give them up. Any other reasons why we might have less large classes like this? Yes, so absolutely. We would want to think that we'd want more hands-on experience that we might be able to have in smaller classes, depending, of course, on the degree that we're doing. More emphasis on collaboration is a really nice way to put it. Absolutely. How much are you going to learn with someone standing at the front talking at you? Well, let me know at 11 o'clock. We'll see how much you feel you've learned. It is the big thing, of course. What lectures are the forum for the experts in the field that you will be studying, whether it's engineering, whether it's law, whether it's nursing, whatever it might be. Those experts who are teaching you, it is traditionally the forum for them to give you the information. It is kind of passive in that way. You sit there and someone up here talks. So naturally, a lot of the ways that you will receive this content now will be through shorter videos that you'll find in your topic flow sites. Shorter videos, of course, because research is pretty clear. An hour being talked at isn't necessarily the greatest way to take in information and then, of course, to retain it. However, we ignore that completely in these orientation sessions. There are, of course, still lectures held at the university in many disciplines, but many less than there used to be. So a lecture, it is a very passive, a passive process for a lot of students. One thing that I'd just say really quickly, if you do have lectures in this first semester, note-taking is a really, really good thing to do in a lecture. Yes, note-taking or note-making can be a great thing to do in general for your learning, but what it does in a lecture is allow you to stay a bit more focused. If you are taking notes, you're literally doing something more active than passively sitting. I think we all know, particularly nowadays, what it is we do when we're sitting and we lose a bit of focus. We often reach for our phone and then all of a sudden we look up and it's like, wow, 10 minutes passed and I'm not sure what that person's saying. There used to be, therefore, a really strong relationship between the lecture and the tutorial. But a tutorial or a workshop, sometimes called a seminar, depending on how it's been structured and therefore what you have enrolled in. These are a smaller group classes. And traditionally, they've been the extension of the lecture-based content. Now, that is still true, but sometimes that content is now something that you have taken in via a video on Flow. But generally, if we think about any topic that you might enroll in, you might have a lecture that could be broken up into videos in which you're learning lots of important things. There's often a reading that is connected to it that you are required to do, or at least skim through so you know what it's about. And then you would go to a tutorial. And that is often going to be really discussion-based. And that's where it is much more collaborative and you're able to break things down, talk about things with a tutor who is often the academic staff member you know the best. Because obviously it's a smaller group, you get to know them over the semester. Often very discussion-based. In some disciplines, of course, more hands-on. As we heard down here, it's practice problems or calculations. For many disciplines that sit particularly in the humanities, where we physically are now, and social sciences, very discussion-based, very debate-driven, weighing up different ideas, debating ideas, etc. It's also an incredibly useful time for you to ask questions. If there are things you've been unsure of when you've sat in the lecture theatre or listened to the videos or done the reading, you write them down, and that's when you want to be asking them, is with your tutor. Never feel your tutor is not going to like that. They're going to be thrilled that you are engaging with the material and that you have questions. That's really important. Some of you will spend times in either the labs or in practicals or pracs. So in the laboratories or in practice-based activities, often in health, obviously, they're clinical simulations, for example. In archaeology, it's practice-based activities in terms of physical techniques. This is digging to me. I don't know a lot about archaeology. I probably should use a different example. Apologies to those of you who are going into archaeology, horrified by what you've just seen. For those who do have labs or pracs, there's a couple of things to really be aware of. They are wonderful ways, obviously, to practice the work and skills of what your profession will be. They're often the most interesting and fun sort of classes that you might have. They are the ones that absolutely require you to be prepared in whatever way you've been asked to be prepared. So for the laboratories over in science, and we always sort of physically point to the other side of the lake where science sits, the sciences, where all of those labs are. Often there is pre-lab work, pre-lab quizzes, pre-lab book. It's something that you need to do so that you are prepared when you get in there to do whatever the lab activity is. The same is true, of course, for any type of clinical practicals. We no longer at Flinders or at most universities have sort of attendance requirements in the way that for those of you who have maybe more recently come from school, you actually have to physically turn up there. You've chosen to come to university. You will choose what classes it is you might attend. Where we do still see some attendance requirements are in labs and pracs, when it is an absolute requirement for a topic that you attend all the laboratories, for example. So if you have this type of learning activity scheduled in your timetable, just be really aware that, you know, they do need prioritising. I make a joke about you maybe not doing the readings for the tutorials. You can get away with maybe not doing the readings for the tutorials. If there are readings for a lab or a prac, you really want to make sure you've done them and that you are all aware of them. And where we do now spend a lot of time, of course, is online with content or activities, often interactive, sometimes, as I say, short videos. Everyone's absolute favourite time is a discussion forum. There's no question about that. And these are things that we find on our learning management system. Our learning management system at Flinders is Canvas. You will hear some people refer to Canvas or some people refer to it as Flow. Flow is simply short for Flinders Learning Online, and it is the suite of programs that sit within our learning management system, but we're all very lazy, so we call it Flow. Prepare yourself for more F words than you have ever heard during your time at Flinders. Everything begins with an F. Here at FU. Don't call it that. That's not what we call it. We just call it Flinders. It's probably better. Has everyone accessed, sort of really, kind of from today, you'll be seeing your Flow topics begin to appear. Is everyone aware of where to find Flow topics? Absolutely. That is sensational. I won't need to, but I will just say here we have, of course, an Okta dashboard. They all look a bit different in terms of what we all have. Some staff might have a few more icons here than you, but Flow is the big one we want to think about. And each topic that you enrol in has, of course, a Flow site, and they all look pretty similar to this. And this left-hand menu is going to be your very best friend in terms of navigating your Flow sites. I need my assignments, I need the lecture recordings, I need my grades, obviously. So once you do, if you haven't already, once you do, of course, get access to your topic Flow sites for this semester, get in there, have a good look. Get a sense of what you need to do, what's going to be due, what's it all sort of looking like, so you can be across things from the beginning. Some students, of course, find the online activities to be absolutely invaluable in terms of their learning, and many students find the online activities less engaging than they do the tutorials, where they find it to be, you know, really, really where they feel their learning happens. Every student is different in that way. You'll know what works best for you as you move along. Many of you will already know from previous study, of course, that you've done. So you're going to be going to all of these classes. That could be a lecture, could be a tutorial, could be a lab. How much time is this going to take on average? A 4.5 unit topic at Flinders might require about 10 hours a week of study. The thinking is that a full-time load, 4 topics, would then be the equivalent of a full-time job, about 40 hours a week. That's a really nice, neat and easy way of presenting that information, and we can promptly move on, except to say it won't feel like that necessarily week in and week out. So in week 1 or week 2 of each semester, you might think, this semester's looking okay. This is pretty cruisy. And then you'll get to week 6 where every topic coordinator at the university says, week 6 is a good time to put an assignment due. Stretch them out, guys, stretch them out. But there are, of course, times in each semester that are going to be busier than others. Often week 3 sees the first of a small assignment due. Then week 6, you might have a bigger piece. There is always a big piece at the end. Why do we do it? To annoy the students? Yes, but also no. We need a big piece at the end because that is where, obviously, you're going to be in the position where you've learned everything that has been taught in the topic, and it's time to have the assessment that demonstrates your learning. So it is unfortunate for students, but it is sort of just the way it has to be. What it means, though, is that some weeks you might think you've got 2 full-time jobs, and other weeks you might just be hanging out with your friends having the greatest time ever. This is where, and I suspect for those of you who stay on for the next session, my colleague Grace will talk to you a little bit about kind of scheduling and time management and how to kind of structure your time in that sense. That can be really useful. How many of you have part-time work that you do? Or full-time work, but part-time work that isn't always the same schedule every week? Everyone pretty set on they're out? Yeah, a few of you, absolutely. I will just say, and I am as guilty as sin at it, anyone who talks to you about time management, who talks to students about time management, will talk about setting a schedule, putting in your regular activities, etc. It is, of course, a very useful thing to do. It makes the assumption that all students have really set schedules week in, week out outside of university, and that isn't often the case. Many students who have part-time work might do 1 shift one week and 5 shifts the next week, and then it's hard, obviously, to schedule. The solution is to just do the best that you can. But on average, we can say each topic, which is a 4.5 unit for most lower level topics, will require about 10 hours a week. If you do a full-time study load, that is 4 topics. Which is just another little point I will make. And that is that most degrees at Flinders make up 108 units. And let me just quickly do some maths. That is 24 topics over the degree. This is, I guess, for the standard 3-year degree. Obviously, most topics are 4.5 units, and so obviously you're doing 18 units each semester, which is the 4 topics. Speaking of time, and I better keep an eye on it, just a fun thing about universities, if something is scheduled for 1 hour, that means 50 minutes. Classes should finish at 10 minutes to the hour. Who knows why? Who wants to take a guess? Why should classes finish 10 minutes to the hour? Yes, to get to your next class. And the good news is you could have one class at the top of the hill in education and you've got 10 minutes to race down randomly to the Sturt campus for some reason for the next class. Students are always pretty keen when they can, when the option is available, to get their classes into a couple of days, to give yourself a couple of days a week without classes. What it does mean sometimes is days on campus can be packed. Absolutely, you're looking for lecturers to be very considerate and finish their class at 10 minutes to the hour so you can get to your next class. And whoever might be in this class or this space next also has their time to come in and set up. So we all, students and staff alike, try and keep to that. Okay, obviously a really large part of university is the assessment. What is assessment? We all know what it is. It's work that is assessed or marked. What is important to understand is that it is assessment or assessment tasks. They're tasks that are, or certainly should be, aligned with the topic learning outcomes. So what you will see for each topic that you do at Flinders, you will see often 4 or 5 or 6 learning outcomes, or LOs as they're often referred to. And they'll always start with, by the end of this topic, students should be able to, and it will tell you what it is you should be able to do. This is important. You know, we all know it abstractly or conceptually, but to think about it really seriously, the assessment that you're doing is the way that you demonstrate that you have met these learning outcomes. The assessment that you do, obviously, should be, as I say, aligned, making sure that you're able to say, yes, I did this topic, this is what I was meant to learn, and look, here I learnt it by doing this assessment. Assessment is absolutely a way to measure your learning. So it provides an opportunity to demonstrate your understanding, your skills, your ability to apply what you've learnt. In any topic that you do, here or anywhere else, assessment shouldn't be the learning. You learn things in your classes, through your readings, through discussions. The assessment is the way that you demonstrate that learning. But assessment drives the hell out of learning. Most of the learning that we actually do at whatever level of student we are does take place in the assessment. When did you learn it? When I had to do an essay on it, when I had to write a report on it, when I had to give a presentation on it, that's when I learned it. So we can think about it in this more positive way. Assessment supports learning. Completing assessments encourages you to engage more deeply with the course content. You read something more closely if you are looking at it in terms of writing an essay than you do if you are looking at it to have a discussion in a tutorial for a few minutes for 1 week, never to think of it again. So while it is important to know that you're not just here to do the assessment, you are here to learn what is being presented and what you're engaging with, we would be remiss not to say that assessment does really support your learning, and it is where a lot of the learning takes place. One of the things that I'm is sort of an area of mine that I focus on in terms of my research or my scholarship is feedback literacy, or the importance for students to be able to understand and engage with and apply feedback. Do really think about this in terms of your assessment. Your assessment will, and if it doesn't, it certainly should provide you with feedback. Feedback that you don't just go, oh, that's how I did on that one, let me move on. You want to be using the feedback to think about your strengths, recognise areas for improvement, continue developing throughout your studies. Sometimes feedback can be hard. There is nothing worse than working with a student who is so disappointed with a grade that they got and they say, I worked so hard on it and I feel like I should have done better. And there's no question that that can be really disappointing. but it is important to try and put that disappointment aside sometimes and really engage with the feedback that you've been given in order to understand what you can potentially do a little bit differently next time. One of the common reasons that students do wander into see many of our wonderful learning advisors who do sit behind Flinders Connect in one of our learning lounges is to talk through feedback that they've gotten. They've maybe spoken to their tutor about it, and then they come and sort of say, look, can you break it down even further? And then they come in with their next assignment to make sure they're feeling really good about things. So in terms of assessment, it is often marked by your tutor or your lecturer, but sometimes an additional marker. If you're in a really big first year topic and there are 800 students, it can well be that there are additional markers who do some of the marking. Assessments in each topic are detailed, obviously, on your topic flow site. And it is, as I say, assessment drives learning. You're not here just to do the assessment, but it's one of the most important things that you know. Every time you get a new topic, you're going to find details of your assessments there. Have a good look and know what you're going to have to be doing and when you're going to be having to do it. That's a really big thing as you start a semester, to get a sense of when is everything due. Come and see me if it is week 3, week 6 and round about week 12 or 13 and I'll be like, told you. But not always, everyone, shush. There are many, many types of assessment that you might do. We often refer to essays. We say, oh, essays. Essays, or an argumentative essay, is the really most traditional form of assessment at a university. In a way, we see less of them, not because there are less of them, just that often now we call them different things. And we say it's a critical analysis, but when you look closely, it really is a written piece of work, putting forward an argument with an introduction, some body paragraphs and a conclusion. I'd call that an essay. But depending on the discipline, you're going to do obviously written-based assessment, essays or reports. You might be doing presentations, oral presentations that either are live or increasingly recorded in terms of engaging with technology. Online quizzes that you'll find in your flow site are a common small form of assessment in many, many topics. And there are, of course, some topics at the university that still have exams. COVID played a very big part in changing the assessment in terms of exams. It used to be that when it was exam week, the sports centre, which is over anyone who catches the bus in and arrives at the bus stops there, you look directly down, there's the sports centre. That's traditionally where exams are held at Flinders. And you knew when it was exam week because there were hundreds upon hundreds of students, security guards saying, you need your student card. And new signs. I've been here a long time. New signs that would pop up. You know, no mobile phones. And then it was no smartwatches. And now I think there is a sign about glasses. So I don't know. Everything's happening. We do have significantly less exams at university now. And it's for the same reason that we do have significantly less lectures at university. COVID chopped out some of the old academics who were refusing to move with the times. Who has had the experience of cramming for an exam the night before or the morning of, going into the exam room, writing things down, walking out and not remembering a damn thing that you wrote? Yeah, everyone. That's kind of how exams work. There are some disciplines where it is really important to be able to memorise and then reproduce for that period of time. But for the most part, exams are not the greatest way to measure a student's learning, not a great way for students to demonstrate their learning. So we do have less exams now. There will be some of you in the room who don't do any exams during your time here. There are some of you who will be in disciplines where exams are still a part of the assessment. Our assessment policy does say if there's an exam in a topic, the topic coordinator needs to justify why there's an exam. So if you do have an exam, it is because there is a real reason for it. I have this a QR code here that obviously is a temporary one because I couldn't quite remember where the other one lived. This morning, there is a guide for most of these different types of assessment that you can have a look at, provided by the Student Learning Support Centre at Flinders. If you do need to write an essay, you need to write a lab report, you need to write an annotated bibliography or a literature review or an article review or any number of other types of assessment, we have guides on them that students do find very, very useful. We have guides in terms of referencing styles. So whether or not you need to use APA 7 or Harvard or MLA or whatever it might be, we will have a guide for you for referencing. And then any other number of guides, particularly around academic language, using the right language, formal tone, all of these things that we know are important at university. Those guides can be very, very useful. Last couple of little things in terms of assessment. These are just my little tips for you. Assessment details, as I said, read them early and read them closely and then read them again. One of the most common things students do at university is write a sensational assignment. It's really good, and it is not quite answering the specific question or the task that was set. And that runs you, of course, into trouble every time. Make sure you know exactly what you need to do. Make sure that you know exactly what you're going to be assessed on. Quite often, and this often happens for students who do come from secondary school into university, they're used to receiving a marking rubric or a marking sheet or an assessment sheet. There's lots of different names for it. At the end, when they get their assignment back and they see how they've done, you want to be looking at that marking rubric long before you complete the assignment. Your marking rubric or marking criteria is going to tell you exactly what you'll be assessed on. It's going to tell you what level they're looking for to be a high distinction, for example, what is a passing level, what is less than a passing level. So really have a good look at your marking rubric and do look at any exemplars, examples or templates that you're given for your assessment. They are there to be used. In some of the programs that I teach into, when students sort of say, oh, are we allowed to use this template for our assignment? Or is it okay if my assignment looks a bit like the example that you've given me? Yes, that is why we've given it to you, so you know what it should look like. So make use of all of those resources that are available to you. Final couple of minutes to just talk about assessment at Flinders. So, some topics at Flinders, a few topics at Flinders are a non-graded pass or an NGP, which means it is a pass or a fail. There isn't a grade given, you're just looking to obviously pass the topic. But for the absolute majority of topics at Flinders, you will see this grading scale. So, percentage is a wonderful thing. We all understand percentage. We all understand the importance of 50%. Anything under 50%, of course, is a fail at university and most places. What is really important is that there are many, many times, if unfortunately you do submit an assignment and it doesn't pass, our assessment policy says if you gave it a proper go and you submitted it on time and it is worth 20% or more of a topic total, you're given an opportunity to resubmit, to take the feedback and to resubmit, apply the feedback and resubmit the assignment. That gives you the opportunity to get to a passing grade of 50. Doesn't give the opportunity to jump to a high distinction, but it will get you the passing grade. Often in the Student Learning Support Centre, we see students who are doing exactly that. I've got this assignment, I need to resubmit, am I on the right track? But let's be more positive than that. 50 to 64 is a passing grade. One important thing to think about if you have come more recently from school is sometimes numbers can look a little bit different at uni and you can feel like you haven't done very well if you've gotten a grade that's 55 or 60 or 64. It is really important to remember that a passing grade at Flinders, what it means is you've done everything you need to do. So you've passed. You've done everything that you need to do. Everything above a pass means you've done more. You have read more widely, you've thought more deeply, you've written with greater nuance, etc. Most of you would be familiar with the phrase P's equal degrees, the idea that, all you need to do is pass and all you need to do is pass. But sometimes students feel that a passing grade isn't very good. A passing grade means you have done everything you need to do. So do not be disappointed if you get a pass. However, moving on from there, 65 to 74 is a credit, as I say, meaning that you have done a little bit more, you have done a little bit better, etc. A distinction is 75 to 84. And then 85 and above is a high distinction, and that is, of course, the highest letter grade that you can get. And if we think about that, you'll hear this referred to a bit, letter grade and number grade. The letter grade is either the pass, the credit, the distinction, or the high distinction, the number grade. Obviously, I got the heartbreak of 84, which is one less than a high distinction. I believe markers shouldn't be allowed to give 84. They're like, oh, it just tells them how close they were. I'm like, no, it doesn't. Just annoys the hell out of them. They're like, 84, give me one more mark. But the difference between the letter grade and the number grade there. Nothing else to add except to say, don't be disappointed. If you get a credit and you think, what, 67, that's not very good, it means you have done more than you needed to do. It is a very good grade at university. The grade point average is, as I said at the beginning, something that a lot of students are very aware of. They're not always quite sure how it works. So your GPA, or your grade point average, is the average of all the points scored for your topics you've studied in your degree. So if you do a full-time load, after your first semester, you get a grade point average. That's when it kicks in for you. If you just do one or two topics in your first semester, you haven't done enough topics yet for them to calculate a grade point average. So at Flinders, the grade point average is out of 7. So the highest you can get is 7. My grade point average is 7, meaning that you essentially have an entire degree of high distinctions. If you get a high distinction, it is 7 points, a distinction is 6, a credit is 5, a pass is 4, and then a fail forever was 0, but thankfully now is 1.5. Because you can fail and still have done a lot of work. You deserve something. So, for example, if you had a grade point average of 5.5, which is a very, very strong one, it really means that on average you're getting a credit or above. If your grade point average is 4, it means that you have passed everything. Obviously, it can mean that if you had a 5, you could have some passes, you could have some distinctions, and of course, as averages work, it averages out that way. So for those of you keeping score at home, after this first semester of your study, you'll have a grade point average and you can have a sense of where you're sitting. What's really important to just note is your grade point average, as much as we all like to brag about what ours may have been. I have a colleague who's just walked in who's probably about to say, oh, mine was this, because she's a nerd. Grace, it's important to remember that your grade point average does not define you. It's not the most important thing in town. Before I finish up, I want to just mention a couple of things that are really important. Obviously, we are in O week, or week 0, and we move into classes beginning next week. I really, really hope these dates are correct. Do make sure you are always aware of a couple of them. The most important date, I believe, for students to be aware of is census date. Census date, which is usually in week 4 or week 5 of a semester, is the final day that you can withdraw from a topic and not have to pay for it. So this is really important to be aware of. If you are unsure of some topics, if you get started in any semester and you're like, oh, I've just gotten really busy at work, or I'm just not too sure, maybe I need to drop a topic or two, make sure you do it before census date so you don't have to be financially liable for it. Whether that's paying up front or putting it on HEX or help, you really want to be aware of that. The other one to be aware of as well is the last day to withdraw without fail. So that usually is in about week 9. What it means is obviously you will be paying for the topic, but you can withdraw and it will not be a fail on your transcript if, like Grace, you want to be defined by your grade point average, which Grace does not want to do, so I better stop saying that. Always be aware of when these dates are each semester. They're important to you, and be aware that if you have topics that don't have exams, exam week might not be so important to you, but that is often when a large piece of assessment for a topic is due. So if you're planning to take a holiday later in the year, I'd always be saying maybe we'll do it well after exam week. Alrighty, let me just say welcome to Flinders. Flinders can seem like a really, really big place. Obviously, it is a big place, but it is a very, very friendly place with very, very friendly staff. So if you're ever unsure of anything, you reach out to any staff member you can find, and if they're doing their job well, they'll make sure that you are pointed in the right direction for what you need. If anyone has any questions, now is a great time to ask them. Otherwise, we want to make sure we've got those good few minutes for you to take a little quick break for those of you who are staying on for the next session. Thanks for coming today, and I wish you the absolute best of luck with your semester. Thank you.